back to the Marketing Boost. Today I have Vincent Oliver from Oliver Revenue on today. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Vincent, and a little bit about what we do is we go into businesses who are looking to automate, improve processes, and we implement custom software, AI solutions, agentic AI, and even some marketing solutions to help people grow their businesses.
Okay. And we had a mutual friend introduce us, and I talked to a lot of the founders and everything out there. There's a subset of businesses that are popping up right now that both find interesting, but also kind of it's just like the marketing business. It's like anybody and everybody, low barrier to entry is AI business.
Right.
I really liked your take on like where AI is going and all of that. Like I know that you're building out some tools. You want to kind of
Sure.
give the 40,000 view picture of it first, and then we can dive into it.
So that's exactly okay. So a lot of people are getting really obsessed with this idea of having AI agents that are in every part of your business that you give unlimited access to, that can just do any task in the background, almost as if it's like hiring an employee. But I don't actually see the best use cases for most companies being that. Now, people like myself and maybe even Leon, okay, yeah, there's something to be said about using agentic AI, but when you're talking about token usage, unless you have a reason to spend that many tokens, I don't think it's worth it personally. I think that what people ought to be doing, and I think that me and Leon are both doing this, use AI to code and develop like true software, custom software that we can place into companies, right? So that companies can have software that costs them a couple $100 a month and not some AI agent trying to do everything, and it's costing companies, $2,000 a month because they have to spend $100 a day or whatever on it. So I really see that where people need to go is, let's not stray too far from like the basics of like computer science, right? Like let's not stray too far from that, but rather let's use agents as a tool to write better code, because code is what's most efficient and most effective. It costs very little to keep that running in the cloud than to have an agent running in the cloud connected to everything that you do. Now, I want you to hear me. I'm not saying don't use agents. I'm just saying for most people, for most practical solutions, you don't need an agent to do it, right? I think there's a lot of hype with like Claude where people basically got this like taste of what an agent can do, and then they treated it like it was, AGI, general intelligence, where it could do anything for you and you just let it live in your business. And I just don't think that's where we are yet. We might get there in the future. However, the expense that it's going to cost to run and manage that is going to be too high for small business owners, and maybe even medium-sized businesses would do better with just like real software, hands-on software that is code. It has a trigger, it has a dashboard where people can interact with it, and you can use it for simple use cases.
I like the dashboard part, because I'm seeing a lot of people all of a sudden get like consolidated reports on what is happening in the organization. Like there's a coffee company that we work with, and they were like, hey, I need to know what's our inventory, what's out there on Amazon, what's out there on Shopify, how much are we moving in retail, and then what is it by store? And normally that would have cost them, $100,000 to $200,000 minimum to get that done. But their operational efficiency just improved, because now they're able to say, man, we're moving a lot in this portion of the South versus somewhere in the North. They're just like, hey, we're not really hitting on those flavors. Like we should probably consolidate those flavors down there and move other stuff there in the North.
Right.
I like the spin that you're talking about agents, because you're right. Claudebot, one, it's really hard to set up, like exceptionally.
Right.
It's a security nightmare. It's a mess. I'm seeing the A16Z and even Y Combinator, those, the great startup like spheres out there, talk about these agentic enabled companies. So they're talking like marketing agencies, dev shops, tax people, accountants, lawyers, all become like software enabled. And I think when people hear that, they think, an agent going and doing stuff versus probably an automation that collects the information, passes it to ChatGPT real quick or Claude, parses it, and then gives somebody information versus a lawyer just saying, no, this whole brief was prepped by AI and who knows if it's correct or not.
Right. 100%. And so what we want, because you started this off by saying like, any general marketing company now is an AI company, right? And so what we want is we want to make sure that when we're plugging in agentic AI, we're plugging it into a container that makes sense almost, right? Into a small environment where it makes sense for it to live in, where it has, where we can actually put detailed instructions where it can do exactly what we need it to do with the level of consistency. Because when you start looking, okay, let's take the idea of some type of general agent. That might be okay for a small business in terms of security issues. They're not worried about getting a massive lawsuit or whatnot. However, they can't even afford it. But then you go to big companies and the security issues, the risk of certain executions not being done properly. If let's say 90% of the time the agent does whatever you need just right, that 10% can land you into $1 million lawsuit. That 10%.
We've seen it. The airlines, Canada Air, I believe, they gave free tickets away, and they ended up had to in court do that because that agent was acting on behalf of the business. I've seen rental car companies. There's been tons of cases where large companies adopt it and then go, oh my, these things were actually communicating like contractable elements of our business that we should have had a human kind of view. And I think too many companies have veered 100% AI. Even there, like I see, we're at Geekdom today, and everybody's an AI consultant. But when you press them, I don't hear the conversations about what's an agent, what's a skill, what's a piece of software. I hear a lot of like, oh, you should use this tool, or you should use this routine or N8N, and I'm like, yeah, but what am I going to do with N8N? Like, are you just using it as Zapier, or are you using it as an actual like orchestration platform? So it is a very interesting space that I don't think people are talking about nuanced enough.
And I think it's so new that people.
Oh, it's new and it's a hype cycle.
Right. So like you were talking about the large corporations. Basically, what happened was some really good sales professional came in, was able to whisper in someone's ear, this is the next big thing, convince them that if they don't hop on it right now, they're going to miss an opportunity to beat all their competitors, and then they let the thing run wild.
It happened to Facebook. Look, Facebook went from being Meta because they were going to go the metaverse and VR to, I think, closing down majority of their Meta labs and saying that they're going to do AI fully. Like and Meta has not been traditionally good at making that great of next bets right now.
Right.
But AI is a very big hype cycle.
I mean, the fact that I have to say Facebook, I mean Meta, shows the issue because they're not even, we haven't shifted to the metaverse yet, and I mean, they had a real opportunity to say, okay, how are we going to architect like this digital landscape? Because we're all living in some way a digital landscape, but I guess they just couldn't quite figure out how to do it. But back to what we were saying, these large companies that have the money to pay and maintain these agents, it's too risky for them.
Look at Amazon.
It's just too risky for them to just let something go loose. And so we need kind of a hybrid model where because AI is naturally probabilistic. So I know everyone who's watching this has used ChatGPT. If you put the same prompt into ChatGPT in 2 different chat windows, you're going to get 5 different answers. Well, a business that relies on making the correct decision every single time or the correct execution every single time, it can't survive that level of probability, right? Things need to be the same. The good thing about code is it's very deterministic. right? If I say this does this, it's going to do it 100% of the time whenever it's triggered. And so the idea is not, okay, how do we let AI go rampant and then figure out what to code? Let us figure out, okay, what needs to be coded, have the AI build the code, and then ship that off to the company. So really what I see has happened is the cost for a company to develop software is a tenth of the cost now. Really it could be maybe a couple $100 to make really good software. Now, everyone's going to charge a multiple, so it's going to be 10,000 at least, right? But now companies can have custom software that's just focused on what they do. Or here's some of the things I'm building. I'm building what you would call middleware. Okay, so let's say a client has. So I'll share the invoicing solution that I have. So a client uses QuickBooks. They can go into my software, log into their QuickBooks, and this software lives on top of QuickBooks and does executions determined by the person automatically, right? So that way they don't have to go into QuickBooks and type everything out and send things. They can have basically what we call middleware, where the person interacts with this, with my software, and then that software will interact with all the different components of QuickBooks based on their custom needs, right? And so what I did was I built in a voice feature where someone could basically manage a specific client or their book of business using their voice, right? Hey, send so and so a payment request, right? Send so and so a link so that they can see how much they've paid and what they owe. I think it's solutions like that we're really going to see is going to take over, because now we can customize software so that way it's not just some VC funded $100 million company saying, I think you'll like this. It could be someone like you or me having a consultation, someone saying, hey, I really need this and QuickBooks doesn't have this, or I really need this and HubSpot doesn't have this, or I really need, and then we can build a layer on top of it.
And those have been uneconomical before. Like no, like that middleware, you weren't going to spend $25,000, or maybe go hire somebody in India or the Philippines to build it, and cost maybe $10,000, but you had to manage them, you had to deal with them, and you had all these problems. I still think that there's some compliance and security issues around there, but like when you explained it just now, it's like that seems like a really cool tool and feature over like hey, you're building on a whole nother QuickBooks. It's like, no, it plugs into the system and you can do that. I love MCP servers.
Right.
Like, the fact is that I can go ask, Google or Claude, what did we spend on Google Ads? What is the trends? What are the projections? What are all these parts that normally would get dumped into Excel sheets? I would have to look at them, kind of like parse through the data. Now an AI can do it, flag things and say, hey, this is what it is. And then you can go to that sheet, validate everything, and all of a sudden something would have taken 3 hours to kind of deal with.
Right.
Took 30 minutes and you have an answer. Even the middleware for that for the invoicing. There we go.
Right. Yeah.
Going and making an invoice is a tedious process. How many hours is in there? What do they have to pull? Who do they have to send it to? That could be a 45-minute process if you're not paying attention and you get distracted, which I will get distracted.
Right. But imagine if you could just say, hey, make an invoice to so-and-so, mark that is for 3 hours of work. Mm-hmm. Let them know that it's due next Friday.
Does that have to be middleware? Could that just be an MCP server? Like, could it be something like that and built in Claude? Like, do you think you'll ever be?
Well, yes, absolutely. But then we're talking about a different type of client.
Okay.
Right.
What would be so then what would be that client? The MCPs versus the middleware one. Where does that delineate?
Okay. So if I have some form of dashboard or basically a screen interface, right? That's going to be for people who consider themselves to be non-technical or less.
A lot of business owners,
right? So a lot of business owners. If I build an MCP server, what that's going to be is I'm going to basically put that on GitHub, and I'm going to have 50,000 software engineers star my thing and download it and use it, right? We're talking about totally different markets, and even what you're talking about, right? So you're talking about basically really accurate reporting, research, and then even if you build in some functionality where, it can even investigate from you, like, hey, what do you think? You spent this much on Google Ads, but this ad performed better. Do you want us to shift funds to this and that? And
Yeah.
right. Well, if you offer that solution to a client who does not use Claude, right, they're going to need some type of graphical interface, right? They're going to want to see some type of image.
Because they can't explain it. Like the way that I can explain it is in a simple natural language form versus the business owner, let's say a nail salon is not going to be able to go like, hey, is that ad where I should put the money? Like you have a different sort of thought process. Okay, I see that.
And so, I mean, the thing that would be really great is for people like us and whoever's watching who's more of a consultant marketer style of person, is, okay, how do we train people so that they will just go right into Claude Code or load up Claude Code in their terminal? And then it makes it super easy because we don't have to build an interface. Like you said, we could literally build skill MD files, markdown files, which costs like nothing. And these people could get, 10x productivity improvements in multiple small domains. Now, if you're going to do agents, that's how you do it right. What you don't do is give it access to absolutely everything. And you say, let it run wild, unprompted, unscripted, and without even having any triggers built in. So I do think that the goal, like when I just gave that presentation, what I was telling people was like, in 3 years, you're all going to be doing what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. Using
Claude Code, using it from your terminal, using, an IDE, integrated development interface, right? You're all gonna be using this, environment. You're all gonna be using this to build things. It's just I'm 3 years ahead of you, and you don't realize yet that you don't need a graphical interface. I'm excited for the time when we don't use screens. I'm excited for screens to go away, and I can just communicate with my agent. And it's just like living in my glasses.
Oh, maybe one day. I'm kind of I think I'm actually more scared of that future because I'm seeing more and more people like, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I have kids. You do too. The 10-year-old doesn't know what a file system is. Like, no. I think that's an important skill no matter what. It's an organizational skill there that you always have to think through. The typing is, something like you don't have typesetters anymore. You just type on a keyboard. Like, I do wonder where it's going. Like, if it's all voice, I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I like that future.
I just use Whisperflow.
Okay, Whisperflow is very cool.
I don't even type because it slows me down. I'll read because I can process written word better than I can process like spoken word.
Yeah.
Right. And so
very similar. Yes.
And so, but I'll talk because I can speak way faster than I can type.
Yes. Voice notes are my friend.
Exactly.
People hate me.
But once they figure out how to get people to be able to, or how to get the thing to be able to translate whatever it needs to in a way where I can hear it and it be, and I can understand it at the same speed or comprehension as me reading it, I think screens are going away. Absolutely. And then here's something you should look into. Google just put like a $200 million investment in Warby Parker glasses. I know.
Okay.
I wear them.
Really?
Yeah. They're trying to I think they're trying to put their agents in glasses.
I wouldn't be surprised. They've been trying to do that since the 2010s when
Google Glass.
Yeah, Google Glass, Robert Scoble. He tried to do that. When I talked to him maybe like a year ago, he was launching an AI newsletter, and I said to him, I was like, the glasses, I was like, where did you ever think we would get to this AI moment? And he said that essentially he knew that it would happen, but he didn't think it would be this quick. And I think that is the big part that's happening right now.
And that's why I say, like, dude, I think we're going to move to no screens faster than you think. And here's the thing, man. I think you might like it more than you realize.
I probably will. It's one of those skills. Just like I hate that nobody can write anymore. I think it's there's a component of you do have to work your brain, and your brain has to work in very particular patterns. And I think like writing, you retain more when you write it down, even versus typing. And I think screens, good or bad, it's just I'm gonna need something to like have it in front of me so that I can just read it. Because if somebody tells me a bunch of words and a bunch of numbers, I'm gonna look at them and go, I need to be able to read this and reread it 5 times because I need to process it. So it is an interesting world that we're heading on. The actual AI usage in the companies. Now,
Okay.
you talked about building like a invoicing system. You talked about some other stuff. How are you like reaching these people? Like, how are you like educating them? Like, I'm sure that the normal business owner is not thinking the way that we're thinking, or the way the internet's thinking, or even X, or what's happening on LinkedIn. Like, how are you getting to them, and how are you pitching them?
So I think a lot of it, and I think this is why, even if you're a builder, you need to have a consulting lens. You need to kind of understand how to communicate to people, because people aren't looking for AI. People are looking to do less work. People are looking to make more money. And if I can speak to you and say, hey, you're super busy. So lawyers are really easy because they're some of the busiest people in the country. They work like 80, 90 hours a week.
And they bill all 80 or 90 hours.
Right? But, if you could convince them like, hey, let's cut down on the task that you can't bill on using AI, so that way you can replace those hours with billable hours. Now they're thinking, what do you got? Right? So I think really it's about messaging, and that's why a marketer is always going to do well no matter what season of technology, what's going on, is because
I've heard that a lot more, that the marketers are actually the best positioned. The engineers could become the way of the dodo bird, but I'm hearing marketers, especially particular types of product marketers that understand product and marketing and like customer communication cycles, that can really go in there and do it. I guess you would kind of consider yourself rooted in marketing, or
yeah. So I mean, I got started in marketing consulting.
Okay.
It just so happened that now I can create software to do the implementation of some of the things that I'll
that we could have never done. Right.
Exactly. And so, I mean, it's alluring. Even I think software is like, because I'm like, oh, I can make software tools for super specific problems. And so I want to float in that direction. And it's like, nah, man, you need to get back to consulting. So that way you can talk to people and hear what the problems are, and then maybe when you get a great grasp, you have so much data from your clients, then spin it together, make a software, and then, try to blow it up. But
so you're talking a little bit of like you being a consultant, but also having a Sassified product on the front end to some degree. So like it, and I'm hearing this a lot more. There's somebody down the hall from me, from the studio, that they have a tool that tracks competitors for marketers. And then he was like, well, maybe on the back end, I do like marketing consulting for how to compete against those competitors, battle cards and all that. And I was like, that's a Sassified agency. Like I'm seeing a lot more of that.
And I think, and this is what I'm noticing, it's on the front end and the back end. Okay. So think about it like I can have a software tool that pays me that will also kind of be like a lead magnet, right? It'll attract customers to me. They'll do a free trial. And then, if they actually adopt and use the software tool, well, eventually they're going to be like, oh, who made this? And then they know my name, blah, blah, blah. And then I reach out and say, oh, okay, I can actually do X, Y, and Z for you. Now I'm consulting though. But then even still, I'm going to have other software products that I know they're going to have need of, right?
And those software products are probably pretty niche, like smaller problem solving. They're not, a $50 million business, but they might be a $100,000 business, right? Like
exactly. And so, I mean, so if I'm getting, let's say $6,000 a year from software on the front end to bring someone in, right? They're paying $500 a month, but they get into my ecosystem, and I have, I can consult them on many different things. I can do training for the executives. I can do, I can offer licensing seats for training for some of the employees, whoever they want to be trained. I can help them make strategy and plans for like long-term implementation, AI-led growth, maybe even how to sassify some of their business processes, right? I can sell all of that. Well, I made $6,000 to get the customer. I'm going to make it. The hope is a couple $100,000 on fulfilling the customer for a small business. So let's say between $1 million or $3 million. And then on the back end, well, if I have 3 other software products that I know that they have need of, who's doing your lead follow-up? Oh, I just got a sales guy. Okay. What's his numbers? How many leads fall through the crack? Give me an exact percentage. I have no idea. Oh, you need clarity and reporting and wouldn't it be nice if he had like a sales buddy that like could automate a lot of the follow-up so that he could do more work and be focusing on closing deals, and this thing just got him booked appointments, right? Well, we can build out 3, 4, 5. We could have a suite of products. I always think about it like it's like the Microsoft business model, where it's like, okay, you came in for Word.
Yeah, you pay for Word, you get Teams, and all of a sudden you're in their ecosystem.
Now you're
Whether
deep.
you will, if anybody likes Microsoft products, I feel bad for them. But just like on the Artemis space mission, I've got 2 Outlooks,
100%. And then dude, I mean, but the companies that use Microsoft, they're like the stickiest companies. They never move. I mean, the fact that I still get emails from people from like Outlook email accounts is like shocking to me.
Yeah.
But it's just because of like my age. I'm not 50. I'm not 60, right? So I'm not one of these old dinosaurs, but once they're in, they stick. And the reason is, who's going to migrate all of this data? Who's going to migrate all this information? Who's going to migrate all this documentation that you built up, right? Well, in the same way, like who's going to migrate all of this software that, because I'm consulting you, I'm going to make sure you implement, and I'm going to make sure you adopt to, and I'm going to make sure everyone in your company does. And I'm going to train them on my software. Okay, yeah, our consulting package is complete. I got you on the software. So that's kind of where I'm going with it. But the trap for me was, I was like, oh, I built something really cool that a lot of people can use.
Yeah.
I'll go all in on that. No, well, for me at least, I don't think that's it, because here's what we know. In a year from now, Claude is going to drop something that's going to make my software obsolete, right? And I don't want to be one of the types of people where I'm trying to sell someone on something that they don't really want or they don't really need.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, but you got to use this software. It's like, but I'm using Claude, and Claude, no, I don't.
Yeah, because there's a lot of FOMO out there, and I'm sensing it from people, and this is why, like just like marketers, that they're compared to used car salesmen, because most marketers don't know how to actually implement. They're more of consultants that can't do.
Right.
And it becomes a really problematic thing down the road as essentially, if you're doing Google Ads and you don't know how to actually implement, you have people outsourced, it's like, whoa, things don't go well. Same thing, and I'm sensing it out there with the AI, like telling them, hey, here's an MD skill file, like you use Claude Code and it just does it, and then here's 5 tools. Oh, by the way, those 5 tool subscriptions cost you $5,000 a month, right, plus Claude usage and all of that. And I like the way that you're thinking, because it's not playing on the FOMO so much of it, but it is playing on the, like, you need to make more money, you need to save time, you need to increase revenue, like, or even just decrease expenses and keep revenue the same.
100%.
So it's a different take.
You need to lay some people off so that you can make more money. I mean, that's a totally real, that's a real take. And, a lot of people, they have 5 team members in, like, let's say 1 workflow. Well, if I could replace what 2 of those people are doing with some type of agent bridge or software bridge, right? Or just a task-driven agent, not something that even needs to really think too much, or figure, that's another thing that kind of gets at me when people are like, all right, agent, figure out my idea, figure out how to do. No. You need to have clarity, because especially for like an AI consultant or an AI implementation specialist, like you need to have clarity. You need to know how it needs to be built and why it needs to be built and when it needs to be implemented, you know, because if you don't have an understanding of that, you're basically saying, Claude, I want you to teach yourself how to build this thing that I think would be cool.
And it's happening so much out there. That's been my problem with it. It's an interesting cycle. I love the direction you're going. For all of those folks that are starting to build an AI enabled company or even building consultings around AI, like what advice would you give them right now? It seems like I think you're in the right headspace and cutting edge of it.
So I think what I would say, as you're building, we're not going to kid ourselves. We know you're using AI to build. You know, you're not software engineers. We know you're using AI to build. What I say is I built myself a skill that I think it's called like education K through 12, something like that. Mm-hmm. And what it does is anytime I make something, right? So first, just start by making things for yourself, for your own business. Don't go and say, I'm going to make things for other people. And then what I'll do is I'll run this skill where it will teach me, it will actually create a React, a visual like dashboard. And what it will do is it will teach me from a kindergarten level all the way up to like a PhD level of like, here's what we built, here's the functions, here's the actual coding commands. I use this bash to do this. Hey, by the way, this is in JSON. You should know that, right? All of these nitty-gritty things that, you know, I'm not a trained like software engineer. Like I said, like we said, we started in marketing. Right?
Yeah.
However, we're going to beat all the software engineers because we understand things a little bit better than them.
We're gonna the term I keep hearing is like a marketing engineer.
Right. Oh, I like it.
It's just like go to market, you know, marketers. Like there's so many little things, and it's always rooted in marketing because it's a social skill. It sells, and it's ability and knowledge to know how to use the tools.
Right. You know, because I mean, for a solution, there always has to be a problem, mm-hmm. right? Marketers are really good at saying, what's the problem? What's the pain?
The psychology, yep.
Software engineers are really great when they work for like large businesses because large businesses have so much data that they know the problems and then they
build
can just say, go build this. Okay. But anyway, build a skill, right? In Claude, while you're building, build some type of skill where it's going to walk you step by step of what it did, why it did it, and then bonus points, make the skill make you be able to build some piece of it, you know, like type, getting back to typing, type out some code, right? Have some type of quiz. Hey, do you know what a cron function is? If you're building things and you don't know what a cron function is, you're listening, like, you should know that it's a scheduled trigger. Like that's something that you should know, and it's important for you because the more you understand the language, the better the prompts you can give, and the more you can have a watchful eye over what Claude is doing. And you could say, why would we do it like this when we could have a very simple code function? And that's why I'm so big on like, hey, let's get back to code. And I'm not a software engineer, but I understand like, I'm not trying to spend 1,000 tokens, man. Like, you know, or $1,000 on tokens, I should say. I spend, you know, hundreds of thousands of tokens a day. Well, I'm not trying to spend $1,000 on tokens. Like, once you make the process, figure out how to make it into like, you know, some type of code where it's easy, and all I have to do is just host it on a server, and it can just exist in the cloud, and that server costs me like $10 a month. Like, that's where you should go, but you have to have some ability to learn. So have Claude teach you after you've built it, right? So you kind of have to have some understanding of two languages, English, right? And like pick a coding language, right? You know, and then have some understanding of both. So that way you can know how to guide it on the front end and understand somewhat what it's doing on the back end. That would be my recommendation. But like we said, it can be a markdown file. It can be a skill. And you could just run the skill after you've made something. Like you said, you were talking about file systems and organizations. I have a skill called file organizer or it's file cleaner. Yeah. And so if I build too much, I'll run the file cleaner skill, and it'll be like, okay, here's everything. Here's the things you can delete. Here's the things that actually got made in the wrong place.
Yeah.
We'll put it in the right place, right? How do I want to put this? You can have all of these really fundamental, you can have these fundamentals built in to where it can run the fundamentals for you, and so I think that's important to know.
So it sounds really about learning, continuing education, and just like understanding what you're putting out there. And it's a key part of it, just like the cron jobs. It is an important thing when you want to fire something off, of what
Right.
Docker containers are, just figuring out those things.
And that's what people are paying you for.
Yes.
Anyone who's hiring you for AI, automation, agentic, software, whatever, they're trusting you when they give you money that you understand the newest tool systems, capabilities that they can leverage so they're getting the most bang for their buck.
Yeah.
You spoke about N8N earlier, right? Like you can keep building N8N automations, but over time, that's going to be less efficient from building your own automations using Claude. And I mean, Claude is dropped like, but
A ton every single day.
but anyway, so for instance, like I have a software product that I'm developing just based off of work for clients, where it will follow up with leads. If you miss a phone call, it'll follow up. If you send a proposal, it'll follow up, right? Well, so Claude, I have an N8N MCP. And so Claude can build into my N8N and can build whatever I need. And so Claude was like, oh, let's build it on N8N. I was like, dude, I'm not paying you $200 a month to build on N8N. Like, dude, just write the JSON code.
Yeah.
And let's put it in the cloud. And then whenever we get some data, use HTTPS nodes. I mean, I hope this isn't going over too many people's head, right?
Definitely. Maybe.
Right.
Like,
but that would be a problem, right? Because these are very simple things. If you don't know what that is, then you should use N8N because it's almost like training wheels, actually. But whenever data comes in, it triggers a workflow. Well, I don't need that workflow running on N8N. I don't need the visual, component. Right. I want this thing running in the cloud so that I'm not tied to N8N and the terms of service and, we don't like you.
A third-party vendor, the price increases. It's a hard world out there. Well, Vincent, where can somebody find you on the internet? Like website, socials, all of that?
Okay, so you can look me up, Vincent Oliver on LinkedIn. You'll see Oliver Revenue Solutions. You can
Put
look
that
up
in the notes below too.
You can look up oliverrevenue.com. That's where you'll find me. That's my website. And Leon said he might help me start up a little bit of like maybe a podcast or some type of social media presence. So whenever that comes around, I'll let y'all know. And probably be on YouTube because I like YouTube the most.
I like it. Thank you so much, man.